Phil McCracken. Phil McCracken. Sook Mahidic. Luke Mahidic. Ophelia McHawk. McHawk. Eileen Dover. Don Kiddick. Wayne Kerr. Tasha Tunstall.
Anyway, just wanted to, share that with you.
Those people are so tight-shirted. No one has ever watched The Simpsons. Not one person on that entire school panel has ever watched. After the first name, you should have known that something was up. But they are so tight-shirted, and it seems like if any of them would have laughed, they probably would have shot the stick out of their ass and impaled it in the wall behind them. No one in that entire thing caught that. And here's the fucking kicker. I know about these school board meetings. You have to apply or put your name on the roster to speak. So that list was provided to that asshole probably days before the school board meeting. And he still didn't catch it. The admin still didn't catch it. Or they were all in on it.
My favorite, there's the ones that weren't even clever, like Eileen Dover. Those are classic ones.
How can you not? How do you miss that? Donkey Kick.
Don Keydick.
These are the people that are at these are the people that are making decisions for our schools, and we wonder why we're in the situation that we're in now when it comes to schools, because these idiots can't even get something. And it's not a new Simpsons joke. That's a Simpsons bit that's been around for years.
Literally, the first episode of Futurama is Fry going in saying, "Hey, I have a pizza delivery for I.C. Wiener."
I'm surprised they didn't put ICUP on there.
Yeah. Can you spell iCup for me? Head of the school board. Can you spell iCup for me?
I just see that, and it just makes me cringe. It shows proof that we have educated, certified idiots at the highest level when it comes to the U.S. education system. And if that isn't one example, there's 55,000 other examples.
To me, it just brought me joy. I just watched it and I'm like, this is glorious. I think the most glorious part about the video is how many they got off. They got off so many. All of them. And they probably just kept reading them and they were just checking them off. They're not here. Oh, they're not here. Yep.
Wanker.
Yeah. Well, that's also how brainless some of those things are, but
that list went through at least 3 quality checkpoints. At least 3 quality checkpoints. And whoever put those names on there had to probably have separate emails for all of them, because if it would have came under one email, they probably would have gotten, alerted from that. So someone put some back end work to get those names on that school board speaking list. And that went through so many other hands before it got to that school superintendent.
It reminds me of those guys, one of the guys calls himself Chad Kroger, And then he like goes to the city council meetings and he's like, I'd like to propose a proposition to build a statue dedicated to what's Paul Walker. Fast and Furious is a very important movie to the LA area, and I think we should build a monument in his memory.
Jeez.
And like, you know, these city council meetings are for everyone and they can't tell anyone to like not speak at them, and you have 3 minutes uninterrupted. Like,
they can. If you make the list, they can't. If you don't make the list, you don't get to speak. So they select those people. So again, someone chose those names.
Yeah, usually
someone chose them.
Usually it's at random. Yeah, usually it's at random though. But yeah, it's always good times. You know, I'd like to see some lighthearted stuff going on in the middle of, you know, our fucking teachers being yelled at for wearing masks and stuff.
Yeah, and school boards being sued and local governments threatening to take away the little money that schools do get now. The system is so stretched, so thin over a 3 layers of cotton or cloth. They're threatened, and then they're wondering why nobody wants to work at a school anymore.
Yeah, we certainly don't live in a hell world. That's for sure. Anyway, should we start the show?
Sure. 5, 6, 7, 8.
What is up, boyos? Welcome to the Jake and Cory podcast. My name is Jake. That over there is Cory. What is up, Cory?
What is up, Jake?
You know, not much. You know, I wanted to bring this up with you, okay? I wasn't sure if I should, bury the lead or whatever. But did you hear about Joe Rogan?
Of course not. I'm not in the know with anything with Joe Rogan.
So, Joe Rogan. So, okay. First of all, I might insert a clip here because it's very funny. But about 2 weeks ago, Joe Rogan had someone on the show. And they're like, you know, if you get vaccinated, it's likely you won't get COVID. And Joe Rogan said, well, even if you're not vaccinated, it's probable that you won't get COVID either. And he's like, I've been around a lot of people who ended up having COVID and didn't catch COVID. And I'm totally fine and totally healthy. And, you know, my immune system is strong. Cut to 1 week later, he posts a video online saying, hey, everybody. So I was on tour and started feeling bad. And turns out I have COVID. And then the really funny part, Cory, because I don't know if you've heard about the whole ivermectin thing going on with the whole COVID thing. So Joe Rogan goes on to say, I threw the kitchen sink at it. You know, as soon as we found out about it, I took Z-Paks, prednisone, ivermectin. Yeah. Regeneron, just like a bunch of shit, you know, that the layman cannot get their hands on. And the funny thing about ivermectin is over the past couple weeks, there's been this trend going on with anti-vaxxers where they're going to their local farm shop and buying horse dewormer called ivermectin. And eating this shit.
That makes sense why I've been seeing horse dewormer trending on social medias.
So the thing about ivermectin is there is a version of ivermectin that is designed for human consumption. But first of all, it's not for COVID. Okay, that's not the use of it. And the creator of ivermectin has come out and been like, guys, like this shit is not for COVID. Stop taking it for COVID. And it's not been tested at all. Even if it does work for COVID, we haven't like tested it at all. So like stop taking this shit, because people are going out and buying the horse version of it, and taking the horse version of it, which completely destroys your intestines. And people are like shitting out their fucking intestines by taking horse dewormer. And then Joe Rogan comes out and says he took ivermectin after the previous week saying, oh, I've been around people and my immune system is strong. And it's like, dude, if your immune system is so strong, why did you feel the need to throw so many different drugs at it? Why does it seem like you're so scared of it? And on top of that, those are a bunch of drugs that you have access to as a multi-millionaire comedian and podcaster that your impressionable, stupid, idiotic listeners don't have access to. So you're sprouting all this fucking bullshit and then not even standing by it and leading your listeners basically to fucking take horse dewormer, and then they're taking horse dewormer and not a fucking vaccine that has been officially approved by the FDA now. Like, they can't even use that as an excuse anymore. The FDA has approved the Pfizer vaccine. It's baffling. I am so confused.
We spoke last show about the thinning of the herd, and maybe the thinning part of it is on the opposite side. We thought maybe, maybe the thinning of the herd is the part where the stupid people will perish and the smart people won't, because it absolutely blows my mind. Now we've got the horse dewormer thing. You're willing to put that in your body. But you're not willing to put something in your body that is scientifically proven and designed. Not only that, if you eat fast food, God knows what chemicals you're putting in your body. You ride behind a bus, you have no idea what chemicals you're inhaling in through your AC unit of your car. There's so many things that are out there that are so much worse that we completely embrace. But then there's something as simple as a scientifically designed, which is not a new scientific design. The shots and the MDNR science is not new. That's been around for quite some time, but it's not shocking to me anymore. It's not shocking. And then Joe Rogan, isn't his whole platform built on stuff like this? Doesn't he normally do things like this where he just leads people? Isn't he a conspiracy theorist at heart?
Yeah. Well, first of all, I think it was Sarah Silverman that said, if you're willing to eat flaming hot Cheetos, then don't talk about your body being a temple.
Exactly. Exactly.
It's very funny and very true.
So true.
Yeah. I don't know, dude. I think Joe Rogan is very confusing because, Joe Rogan has been into conspiracy theories, but he's always kind of been on the fence and I'll hear this guy out, but I'll also hear this guy out. And I think a lot of people bought in. I think what happened over the past year, his handling of COVID and all of that shit has kind of exposed him. He ended up moving to Texas and all this shit. And I think over the course of the last year, we've all just kind of, if we like to admit it or not, we've all been a bit polarized. And I think he got really pushed to one side, which is unfortunate because I think a lot of his followers just followed him because he had Elon Musk on or whatever, or Robert Downey Jr., which
or the fact that he's a very talented comedian. That's it.
Well, I used to listen to Joe Rogan's podcast, and I was always Joe Rogan is sort of like a monkey brain, ape man.
But it was comedy.
Well, and it was comedy, and he just had interesting people on. He's able to navigate a conversation well, you know, and lead it in an interesting direction. But then you start to realize like the type of guests that he has on, like he ends up having Ben Shapiro on, and he ends up having like Jordan Peterson on, and he ends up platforming these people who probably shouldn't be platformed, like anti-vaxxers and you know, people that probably, and Alex Jones is like a great example of that. Like he still has Alex Jones on all the time. But then they're like interspersed with like, you know, Robert Downey Jr. and Miley Cyrus and, you know, these big name people. So like, I think a lot of people don't realize what's going on. I don't even think Joe Rogan does. I think Joe Rogan is just an idiot. Honestly, I really do. I think he's just a fucking idiot.
I jumped off the Joe Rogan band, or off the Joe Rogan wagon when after he stopped hosting that game show. What was the game show?
Fear Factor.
Fear Factor. That was the last time that I was like even remotely connected to Joe Rogan, was during his Fear Factor days. Prior to that, it was News Radio when he was on that show. That's how old I am. I loved him on News Radio, and then Fear Factor, and then after that, I was out. And I listened to his podcast like during the first year of developing Fat Guy Radio, and yeah, that was about it. Other than that, I bounced on Joe Rogan. He has the most. I think he has the most one of the most successful podcasts.
Definitely, there's no denying that.
Well, yeah, and the only reason why he has that is because of his previous stardom. I mean, he has television, he has stand-up comedy. He was a huge star before he dove into podcasting. So that audience just translated over, and then he built more from there. But other than that, he's not like you and I, where, you know, started from the bottom. Now we're here. He went in with the platform. he went in with a platform of 1 million or so people.
Yeah, I feel like Joe Rogan. You know, not to discredit Joe Rogan, because I'm not denying he definitely has like the biggest podcast, or at least he did, because he moved to Spotify. I don't know what his numbers are like now, but you know, he definitely did have the biggest podcast on YouTube and stuff. I think a lot of it, though, I've never found Joe Rogan particularly funny. Like his stand-up, I always thought was just sort of like, this guy's kind of an idiot. But he had a lot of friends, right? Because he was a comedian, so he could have a lot of interesting comedian guests on, as well as the fact that he was sort of interested in like weird spacey topics. So he would bring sort of people that weren't just in comedy. So he had that going for him. But I think like the biggest thing that Joe Rogan had going for him is like, he was one of the first guys to do it, you know? So like, I think he just got kind of lucked out just by being one of the first dudes to really do it and like fully do it, you know? Because you had guys like Kevin Smith, but like Kevin Smith's whole deal was like his very nerd oriented, where Joe Rogan's was just like, I'm gonna bring a person on and I'm gonna interview them. Is basically like the new form of late night talk shows. But I think he just went down a very weird and unfortunate avenue, especially over the course of like the past year and a half, 2 years, which is too bad. I wish I'd love for Joe Rogan to like stop being an idiot and just like start calling people out, but it doesn't seem like that's the case. So
no, he's made money off of it. He's built his fortune on it. And when you have something that you put at the center of your revenue stream, why would you back away from it? I mean, it would be dumb for him to back away from it right now. So I would probably bet that when the microphones are off and he's in his private time, half the shit that he spews out on his show is probably not even really something that he truly believes. He's playing to his audience of, mutants and knuckle draggers. It works for him. He pays his bills. I didn't know he moved to Texas. Then again, I don't follow him that close and don't care.
Yeah. Yeah, so I wanted to bring that up because that's like a big piece of news, and everyone's sort of clowning on Joe Rogan because he's an idiot, which is fun. It's always fun to clown on idiots.
Go back to hosting Fear Factor when he was a great. Nothing against the new host of Fear Factor before they canceled.
Is it Ludacris?
Nothing against Luda. Nothing against him. But Joe Rogan was a lot of fun on that show. I thought he did very good hosting that show. Well, I think he does a very good job hosting MMA as well.
That's what he does, yeah.
And I think
he does good on that, I think.
You know, stay there, stay in that lane. He's really good at that.
I just wish he would acknowledge that like some of the people he has on are fucking idiots. You know, I wish he would acknowledge that like Ben Shapiro is a fucking idiot, and like especially like Steven Crowder and like, you know, you probably don't know these people, but like, yeah, I wish he would just acknowledge that those people are idiots. But anyway, I had another thing that I wanted to bring up here.
Sure.
I wrote it down because I didn't want to forget. I have two things written down here that I want to talk about with you because I think these are interesting. The first one is, did you hear about the dude from Jeopardy, the new host of Jeopardy?
Mark something? Is the new host of Jeopardy? He's also an executive producer of Price is Right.
I think it was Wheel of Fortune, right?
No, it's Price is Right.
I think it was Wheel of Fortune.
Okay, well then just fucking disagree with me then and look it up.
So he got fired. Mike Richards. Well, yeah, he did get fired. And you're right. He was an executive producer of The Price is Right. Stepped down from his hosting duties, basically because he got canceled for some bullshit. I don't even think it really matters.
Yeah, from years and years and years ago.
Well, here's the interesting thing about Mike Richards, okay? Mike Richards, okay? They were having this whole thing with Jeopardy, all right? Where they were bringing on guest hosts and they were gunning for different people to be the host of Jeopardy. Like, who's going to be the host of Jeopardy? And Mike Richards, who was a producer of Jeopardy, put himself in the race. And then he ended up winning the race to host Jeopardy. And that's insane because you had people like LeVar Burton who were trying to host Jeopardy. Like, that's a way better pick than fucking Mike Richards. And I think what happened is Mike Richards kind of put himself in the spot to be the new host of Jeopardy. This shit came out about him from his past. And they looked at it as an opportunity to be like, yeah, let's get rid of this guy. You know, let's fucking get rid of this guy and replace him with LeVar Burton. Because now LeVar Burton's online being like, hey, I should be the host of Jeopardy. And everyone's like, yeah, you should be.
I don't think the reason why I disagree that with you saying that he got fired, he would have to fire himself because he is the executive producer of Jeopardy. So he didn't. I don't think he fired himself. Once all those backstories came out, he stepped down. Once he entered the race to be the host, he stepped down as producer of Jeopardy because he was like, I want it to be fair. Which, you know, there's a lot of politics involved there. Where it's like, yeah, you stepped down as the producer because you wanted to be the host, and now he is not a producer. And he was just the host. And I'm sure all the new producers were like, hey, man, we're going to make a lot more money if LeVar Burton's our host than if you're the fucking host, you weird milk toast man. That seems very uninteresting. Right. He's got Price is Right money. I'm going to say what everybody else is not saying about this Jeopardy thing. Alex Trebek was the best. Alex Trebek has hosted many a shows prior to Jeopardy. The show needs to be put in the mothballs. Let's let it go away. No one will be able to ever replace the great Alex Trebek. Put the show on the shelf. Let it go out with a bang, even though now it has a stain on it. because of all of this jargon about it. Alex Trebek, before he even passed, in one show or in an interview somewhere, made mention to who should take its place if he ever stepped down. He listed who he thought would work, and that person hasn't even been given a chance. I think the show just needs to go away.
Who was the person that he listed?
And it's just old people that watch Jeopardy. It's a very inexpensive show to produce. That's probably why it's still around. But it just needs to go, man. It just put it on the mothballs. Call it a day. LeVar Burton, you're great. You know, when he did guest host it, he was very nervous, according to some of the, the blogospheres, if you will. And then Mike Richards doing what Mike Richards did. It looked like he was positioning himself the whole time to become the new host, but he never wanted to come out and say that he wanted to be the new host. I mean, the dude, I remember Mike Richards from my childhood. I believe he hosted several shows from back in the day. I want to say Double Dare, but I don't think it was Double Dare. But Mike Richards isn't new to hosting TV shows.
Right. Yeah. He has done some unsuccessful. Yeah.
But I think the show overall, it just needs it put it in the mothballs, man. We've ruined it. It's tainted.
Who was it that Alex Trebek said should be the host?
I don't remember the exact name, but there was an interview that had surfaced right during the time that that Jeopardy announced that they were doing all these guest hosts. There was an interview that surfaced with Alex Trebek from a couple of years back, I believe it was, where Alex said who he felt would do great in his spot, in his stead, if he ever retired. Or I think he was actually sick at the time when he had already started getting sick when he had said it. And I don't remember who the person's name is.
Yeah.
It needs to go away. They need just shut the show down. Shut it down. You know?
I don't, I'm kind of...
Pacific Islands for 800. It's played out. It's over. Every other show that Alex hosted is gone. Close this down. Shut it down. It's over. It's stained. It's tainted. Let's just end it all. End the misery for everybody. All the people that are 65 and up will have to find something else to do at 6:00 in the evening.
Yeah, I don't know. Like, I think, Alex Trebek, got sick. He hosted up until he passed. And, I don't know. I think, like, the thing about Jeopardy, though, that makes it, like, a lasting show, and I don't really not that I don't like Jeopardy, I just don't watch it that often, but, like, I think the thing that makes it last is that it's literally just trivia, and, like, that is a timeless sort of idea for a television show. There's no more basic show than fucking Jeopardy, it's literally just random fucking trivia. And I think that's why Jeopardy continues. And I think Wheel of Fortune should go before Jeopardy.
Pat St. Jack also needs to be put out to pasture. Think of it this way.
No, Pat St. Jack is a goddamn treasure, first of all, okay?
No, he's not.
Pat St. Jack. You have some grace on Pat St. Jack and fucking Vanna White, okay? You have some goddamn respect. You put some goddamn respect on their name.
Tell me what Vanna White does. She used to turn the letters. What does she do now? She taps on them, and some intern in the back hits the button and makes the letter light up. She doesn't do anything anymore.
She's the spirit of the show.
And spirits pass. She needs to go on to the next life. Wheel of Fortune, mothballs. It needs to go away. Pat St. Jack is an a-hole. There are many reports online of people encountering Pat St. Jack and he being a little shit. Go, bye. Okay, the wind spill, the wheel spins. You bankrupt, you lose nothing. Pat St. Jack is laughing at you internally. The show needs to go away too.
These shows are just like, they're so easy to produce though, right?
They're extremely cheap from the production side. They're very cheap to produce.
And they're timeless.
Let me make this point. Jeopardy, before Alex Trebek got sick, how often did we hear about Jeopardy? unless you were at the bridge game with Sister Margaret and her 4 friends, you didn't hear anything about Jeopardy prior to Alex Trebek getting sick. Alex Trebek gets sick because he is a game show host legend that goes all the way back to the 60s and probably the 50s. When we heard that he got sick, everybody's eyes zoomed in on Jeopardy. But prior to that, I didn't even realize Jeopardy was still on. After last time I heard about Jeopardy was with my grandmother, and she died in 1999.
I think there's a big fan base for Jeopardy. I actually do. Like, I feel like there is actually, like, but like they're just not very vocal. I feel like there is like a giant fan base, a lot of old people and like nerdy kids who like to do spelling bees and shit, I think really like Jeopardy. So I don't know. I feel like there is a fan base for Jeopardy.
It's worn out.
I did want to ask you,
and it's done.
I wanted to ask you as like a sort of tangent off of this. Are there like game shows that you like? Did you have like favorite game shows growing up?
Yes, I do. I remember. I am an old soul, man, and I remember watching this show with my grandmother on her big butt television in her living room at the Matthew Henson Projects. And it was a game called Match Game hosted by Gene Rayburn. And I remember watching that show with her as a little kid because I think it went off the air in the 80s, mid 80s. And I loved that show. And when they brought it back with one of the, I can't remember who the host of it, Alec Baldwin. With Alec Baldwin, they brought it back with Alec Baldwin, and I think Alec Baldwin kills it. And they kept the format same. They kept the saucy celebrities there the same, even though after a few seasons, they had this, like one of the celebrities on the platform back when Gene Rayburn hosted it back in the 70s. What's her name? Jesus, all the names are escaping me right now. But they had it, and then when Alec Baldwin came back and they reintroduced it on ABC and they brought it back, they had Rosie O'Donnell always in the middle chair at the top. And she was kind of a staple there, but then she ended up stepping away or ended up not continuing. And then it kind of teetered off after that. But growing up, I remember watching Match Game. Another show that I remember watching as a little kid was The Gong Show. Yes, I'm that old. The Gong Show. And then when they bought The Gong Show back, and they put Mike Myers in that messed up makeup, and they tried to trick us into believing that this person is a real person, and they created social media accounts and everything else. And Mike Myers came out and said, "No, that's not me." And, we hadn't heard from Mike Myers in 40 years. And then he resurfaces as this, game show host. I was excited to see The Gong Show come back. But then I also knew in my adult years, it had the lasting power of wet tissue. And that's exactly what happened. And it went away. Another show that they brought back is a new adaptation of What's My Line, which is actually hosted by the guy from Blackish. What's his name?
Anthony Anderson.
Anthony Anderson hosts the new game show. He does very well at that. They brought that back.
I always think of Kangaroo Jack with him.
Yeah, who is guest. So there are some old games, and I'm a big fan of the Game Show Network on now that airs all these old shows. And I will sit there and I will watch hours and hours on it because I remember it from my childhood. And Jeopardy was one. My grandmother would watch Jeopardy back in the day. It would be Jeopardy, then Wheel of Fortune. They would go back to back. And I remember I would have to get up and turn the knob of the TV to the right channel for grandma to watch, Wheel of Fortune that followed Jeopardy. So there are some times where these game shows do come back, and I think that they do well. But then also, nowadays, they have to compete with the action-packed, emotionally driven competition shows, like Big Brother and the cooking competitions.
Yeah, more reality.
Yeah, more of a reality competition show. And so these game shows don't do very well when they do bring them back. But I love it. And another one that I watched as a young kid, Family Feud. Family Feud was always on in our house growing up. And then when it came back with Steve Harvey, I love everything about Steve Harvey. I think he does an amazing
Steve Harvey.
He doesn't that just another thing that separates you and I. But Steve Harvey is amazing at that show. And that show has been through 3, 4, 5 incarnations. And there is that Family Feud curse that people have talked about as well.
I think so first of all, Steve Harvey, I do like watching Steve Harvey on Family Feud just because it seems like he's suffering so much. He just seems to fucking hate it so much. He seems like he's like in physical pain. But the thing I fucking hate about Steve Harvey, and you see it on his goddamn talk show, he just seems so like fucking high and mighty, and like he has some of the worst takes I've ever fucking heard out of anyone. But I digress. But Family Feud, dude. Okay, I remember fucking staying home from school, like if I ever got sick or whatever, and I stayed home from school, and that was like the game show that was on at like you know. That was the show that's on at like 11, you know? Yeah,
it was a mid-morning show. Yeah.
Yeah. That's so like the only way you're watching Family Feud is if you were sick, if you were homesick. So like I always have this association with Family Feud and being sick. And the host when I was younger was the guy who played Al on Home Improvement. That was the host. I forget the
Jim
dude's
Carn.
actual. Yeah. That's his name. He was like my guy. Like that's the host of Family Feud to me, because I felt like he had this level of like wholesome that fit Family Feud pretty well, where like Steve Harvey just has this like, oh god, these guys are fucking idiots. And I do enjoy that about Steve Harvey. I will admit it is kind of enjoyable to watch Steve Harvey just suffer up there. But one that I never quite understood. Go ahead. So you were during the Richard Karn days.
I remember everybody, dude. Okay. Richard Dawson was the first host, and he was the most notable thing about Richard was the fact that he kissed all the female contestants on the lips. He kissed all of them. Yeah. And then famously, Richard Dawson, it went to John O'Hurley.
I remember John O'Hurley. They would play like reruns of his. And I remember Louis Anderson. Louis Anderson didn't do it for very long, though.
No, he didn't. And then Ray Combs stepped in and unfortunately ended up killing himself. Ray Combs stepped in. Yeah. And then I think Richard Karn picked it up after that, or maybe Louis picked it up after that. And then Steve Harvey was also. So that show has been around for a long time.
But like when Steve Harvey took over, though, that felt like a true reboot, right? Like,
yeah, totally.
Because before that, like all of those dudes that you listed before, it was kind of like concurrently running, and then it like stopped airing, right, for like a while.
Yeah, it went off the air for a while, right? And when they brought it back, not only did they reboot it,
and it came back to like prime time.
Yeah, it came back prime time, and it literally they wanted Steve Harvey so bad, they moved the set, they moved the production location from L.A. to Atlanta for Steve Harvey, for the purposes of getting Steve Harvey. They moved the production. That's how bad they wanted him, and Steve Harvey hits that. He hosts the shit out of that show. And I'm sorry, not Gene Rayburn, but Ray Combs came after Richard Dawson, not before Louis Anderson, as I think I previously mentioned. But dude, Family Feud to this day, it's great. And when they rebooted it in the right way. And Steve Harvey, I feel brings the freshness to that show. And it works. It's a totally different show than what it used to be.
Steve Harvey.
Yeah, I mean, it works better than what it did before, and I think it's got staying power. And then when Steve is done doing it, it'll probably go away, because at this time, I can't see anybody else that I think would work in that role. Steve Harvey does what David Letterman used to do. Steve Harvey knows how to let the room breathe. He knows how to let the joke breathe. He's got that timing down that David Letterman possessed when David Letterman would interview people on The Late Show with David Letterman. You don't have to fill every moment with your preconceived funny. You let the funny happen. And that's what I believe makes Steve Harvey so great on that show, is that same theory that Letterman had, that same thing that Johnny Carson prior to Letterman also had. You let that moment float, and it's a skill to do. It's something that I try to implement on Fat Guy Radio Show, where we don't come in with these pre-planned jokes or pre-planned funny. We let the funny develop in just what we do. And it's a skill, and I believe that's what's allowed Family Feud to be so successful under the tutelage of Steve Harvey.
Yeah, I do feel like Family Feud, though, is like, it's such a good concept for a show. Like, hey, let's interview 100 people, and then people have to guess how many people guessed a certain thing. Like, it's a great idea for a show, and it's like fun to play along with. Where I feel like Jeopardy is like hard to play along with, because some of the people that play Jeopardy like take it really seriously, and like you don't even have time to even think about what the question is. Where like Family Feud is so easy to be like a notebook, Steve, or like you can think of something really quickly.
The question is that how come over all the years that Family Feud has been out, and with the instrumentation of the internet, why hasn't anyone come out and said, hey, I think I just took a Family Feud survey?
I think they just survey the audience.
I don't think that they do the audience, because the audience is filled with the families that are about to go on the show. You have the way that the production for Family Feud is done.
I don't think that's true, actually.
Yeah, it is.
I've seen my cousin is actually on Family Feud.
I've seen episodes of Family Feud, and they cut to a shot of the audience, which they do very, very infrequently. And I saw a couple of people in the background of the audience shot that was on a future episode of Family Feud. They also shoot all of those episodes. I think Steve probably does about 4 or 5 of those a day. So that's like a whole month of episodes shot in one day. And he probably has a shoot schedule of maybe 3 weeks, and he's out. And then because I remember that they did Celebrity Family Feud, and Zach Braff and his podcast, Fake Doctors, Real Friends, his podcast cast went on the show. They filmed the show in May, and then the episode aired, I want to say in June. So they shoot a lot of those in bulk at one time. And with the Family Feud families going back and forth, if they win, they play another family. And if they win, they play another family. And they go 5 times. That's one day shooting.
So I found something here. The show uses a polling firm called Applied Research West. The firm calls people randomly to ask them questions. They do not specify that it's for Family Feud. They don't let anyone know that these questions are about Family Feud. It's totally at random. They just call random people and take the survey that way.
So imagine being that guy. Hello, this is Officer. I would like to participate in the survey. Okay, yeah, sure, I'll participate in the survey. What question do you have? What's the worst thing you would like to see Grandma in? The bed with my grandpa. Who is that guy? Who's that guy? You know what I'm saying? Can you imagine getting those questions? What's the worst? What's the worst position you could? If you where does a doctor? What does a doctor say to you when in a doctor's office? Drop him. Who is conducting? He's
naked grandma, questions. Steve. Naked grandma. Naked grandma.
Oh my! I want to be one of those surveyors. I want to be one. Send me that link to that company. I want a job with them because I want to call people up and ask them Family Feud-esque questions. I mean, how do you phrase that when you're talking to somebody on the phone? You know what I'm saying? Who's that guy? Jeez. I want to know.
Yeah.
That would be a fun job to do. A surveyor just asking random effing questions.
Yeah, I always liked watching Family Feud, though. I remember the ones with Louis Anderson because I remember being a fan of Louis Anderson's stand-up comedy.
Show me cupcake.
Yeah.
He was
Louis
horrible
Anderson.
at it.
He was not great. But he went on to play Zach Galifianakis' mom in this show called Baskets. Show's amazing. You should watch it. But like one show that I never understood, Cory, was The Price is Right. I just don't understand why people like it so much. I've watched it before. I just don't fucking get it, dude. Like,
okay. I watched The Price is Right. I watched The Price is Right as well. And you know what? I'll be honest. I watch it now, even with Carey. What's his name? The comedian.
Drew Carey.
With Drew Carey. I even watch it now. Because Drew Carey's funny is the fact that he's just so damn awkward. That's what his funny is. But I watch it and it's like I can answer why people like it because it's a direct idea where you're guessing the suggested manufactured retail price of something,
like the MSRP. Yeah,
but the MSRP could be one thing in California and another thing in New York,
right,
and then another thing in Ohio and another thing in Atlanta. So you really can't. So there's no way. Like there is no way that
also you watch reruns of it. Like inflation just totally ruins reruns of that show.
Completely ruins it. And you can't tell me that when they have a Ford Focus car giveaway and someone has to guess the price, that Ford Focus in Arizona is not $17,826. It's not $17,826 in California.
That sounds about right, actually.
No, it's not. The Price is Right games are so rigged, and there is no way to vet the actual real prices. There's no way to go back and say,
"Hey, pull it up online," I guess.
No, because here they can probably say the same argument that I'm using to say that you can't. There is no way. If they show you that the Ford Focus is worth $17,826, that may be the case in Canada, but you don't know what it's so all over the place. And that big
we should
wheel,
put it to the test and just look it up as they're doing the show.
I have, but we end up coming up with Arizona numbers. There is no way, dude.
is supposed to be like nationwide, right?
What do you mean SRP?
Like,
MSRP is supposed to be nationwide. Okay, so you're guessing the manufacturer suggested, and it's a suggested retail price of a bottle of Dawn soap. I've seen items on The Price is Right that I personally have purchased. A bottle of Dawn antibacterial soap, 28 fill ounces. On my shelf is $5.19. On The Price is Right, it's $8.28. So what suggested manufacturer's price are you going with?
Yeah, I don't know. It is a little confusing, but
it's very confusing. And that big wheel, that thing is ran by motors and brakes. If you watch it closely, you can see it speed up and slow down.
Oh yeah. It's
totally contrived. Sometimes it spins like a banshee, and then other times it creeps along. And you can't tell me that something that has all of that centrifugal force going around and around and around just happens to stop a hair before the winning number. Come on. I
feel the same about the wheel and Wheel of Fortune. Yeah.
Oh, totally. Same thing. It's all contrived. It's all controlled, folks. It's a game show, but unfortunately, it's not going to be fair. And I love to watch the main reason why I like watching game shows is I like to see all the black people lose. Happens all the time. Sit there, black person playing. I'm like, there's no way this black person is going to win. And another one that came out with Elizabeth Banks, Pressure Luck, was rebooted with Elizabeth Banks as host. And Elizabeth Banks and her little racist ass I love it when they get to the little interview parts and she interviews the women, and she always goes into a little bit more detail and asks a follow-up question. But when it gets to someone that may have a little bit more melanin, I notice that her follow-up questions sometimes don't exist. Interesting, Elizabeth. Elizabeth, can you explain? Can you explain why you asked Becky Sue a follow-up question about her husband being a pig farmer? But then when you got LaQuisha Jenkins on the other end, and she's a registered nurse, how come you didn't have any follow-up questions for her, Elizabeth? Or did you have a follow-up question, but then your editors took it out? What about that? And how come I can count on one hand how many times a black person is won on that show, Elizabeth? Explain. What? Can't? Didn't think so.
Yeah. It's almost like feminism skews a bit white, huh?
and it's not nothing new. Even the shows that I see on the Game Show Network from the old days. Oh, it was even worse back in the old days, man.
Yeah,
I mean, they would laugh a colored person right off. You lost. Bye. See ya. Oh, they would laugh a colored person right off the stage back then. You know what I'm saying? I mean, I've seen G. Rayburn not even shake a black guy's hand on the freaking Match Game show back in the 70s. You know what I'm saying?
Oh my God.
I'm like, come on. But that's another reason why I like watching it, because if I see that and if in the 70s, back in the day, if it's anybody, not just a black person, but anybody up against a young, pretty blonde, you are automatically losing. They are going to keep a young, pretty blonde chick on any of those shows back in the day, because that's what people wanted to see on TV. You go up, you could be a white man that is a rocket scientist. And if you were up against a young, pretty blonde girl back in the 60s, back in the 70s, your ass is losing. Your ass is done.
That is one thing I really like about Steve Harvey as the host of Family Feud, is every time it's like a black family versus a white family, Steve Harvey is like hyping up the black family, like, come on guys, what do you guys think? And then he goes to the white family, he's like, so what's your guys' guess?
No, I've seen what he does with a black family is that he will bust I've seen him hit black contestants in the head with his cards because they give a stupid answer. You know what I mean? But I've also seen him go in on some country white folks too, because Steve Harvey is country. See them going on some country white folks too on that show. And he's like, that's a country answer or that's a hood answer, where he goes in. But there are some families that coming in. Oh, there was one black family that was just so damn uppity. You could just tell that Steve wasn't even connected with them. He tried to crack a couple of jokes and they did that Protestant giggle. You know what I mean? They giggle through the nose of some uppity ass stuck up black family, just horrible on that show. And I'm glad, and unfortunately they went all the way through to win the car. And then when they went to win the car, because they let the families run over to the car back in those episodes, it looked like they were like, I could just imagine there was a floor director or somebody behind the camera trying to cheer that family on to get excited, you just won a car, and they're just up there with their Protestant giggle. This is great. But we're not going to drive it because it's not a BMW.
You can sell it, though. One thing that my family was really into, like the first 3 seasons of it, and then just completely stopped watching it. I feel like a lot of other people did this as well, was American Idol. Like, I remember when that shit started, I feel like a lot of people were like really fucking into American Idol when it first came out. And now
there was nothing else like it.
Yeah, but now it's like there's like 6 shows that are like that. No one gives a fuck about the winners of those shows ever. It's more about like, hey, look, it's fucking Adam Levine of Maroon 5 is the host. And you know, And you look back on these shows and you're just like, man, these shows suck and they're stupid. Like,
we got the best thing out of American Idol, Kelly Clarkson. We got Carrie Underwood. And it's funny because a lot of people that don't even win that show have bigger careers. Where's Ruben Studdard right now? And he didn't. And he won. Clay Aiken didn't win, and he's got a better, more successful career. You know what I mean? The only thing that those shows do is they give people a platform and a spotlight that they probably didn't have before, because there's a lot of people that competed on those shows and they don't go anywhere. And I was just like your family. I watched the first few seasons of American Idol and then I bounced. Then we got The Voice. Then we got X Factor. Then we got America's Got Talent. And then the market was flooded. And I've even followed people on these shows that didn't win, and they've had more successful careers than the people that have won.
Yeah, I've heard Kelly Clarkson talk about this a few times, where like her American Idol, because like part of the deal with American Idol is if you win American Idol, you're signed to a like 10-year contract with that record label. So you're almost better off if you don't win, because then you're not like trapped in this record label. And she talked about it. She's like, dude, like my first album I was proud of and my second album I was proud of. Besides that, like those were not the albums I wanted to make. And she's like, I just now got out of it and I can finally do things I want to do. So I imagine that happened for a lot of the winners. Like I bet that happened to Ruben Studdard, where he's like, I wanted to do a thing, but I couldn't do the thing because American Idol wanted me to do something.
Same thing with Fantasia. Same story with Fantasia. Yeah. Same story right now with Chris Blue winning The Voice. About
know who that is.
3 or 4 seasons ago, Chris Blue won The Voice, and I've been following him, and everything that he explained on that show that he wanted to do, I have yet to see him do it. And it seems like all the stuff that he's releasing out is tied to the stuff that he performed on The Voice, and he hasn't really spun out of that. And Kelly, when she won American Idol, she had a lot of fame because she was the first. But then look at Justin Guarini. Where's he? He's doing Dr. Pepper commercials as that little itty bitty little.
I think he had some controversy though too, didn't he? But
he had a little bit of controversy as well with his sexuality. But other than that,
he was like the host. I remember he was like the host of the TV Guide channel for a while.
Yeah. Congratulations. You came second runner up to a voice competition.
You killed a TV station.
Here's a TV hosting gig. You know what I mean?
For the TV Guide channel, which won't exist anymore.
And I love how these singing competitions are like looking for new talent, looking for people that are different, looking for people that are going to come out but then by the end of the show, as the show progresses, you see them transform into what every other musician and artist is. They end up singing like them. They end up dressing like them. They totally lose their originality by the end of these shows.
The weirdest thing, though, with like The Voice, I've noticed is the biggest difference between The Voice and American Idol is like there was one time I was watching American Idol and one of the people who auditioned was this girl named Dia. And I'm like, I know who that is. She's in this band that I've been listening to for 7 years called Megan Dia. Like, she's an established artist. Like, I know, I own some of her albums with Megan Dia. Like, I have seen her live like a few times, and she's on this thing where like American Idol, at least in the beginning, I don't know what's up with these shows anymore. I haven't watched them in fucking years. But like American Idol, like Kelly Clarkson was just some girl from like Tennessee or something, right? Like no one knew who the fuck she was. It's so fucking strange to me that it's like this person has a career, and they talk about it too, where it's like this is your second chance at fame, and it's like, bruh, that ain't right. That ain't fair.
On the current season of America's Got Talent is a person by the name of Michael Winslow. Does that sound familiar to you?
Yeah. The police academy guy, right?
The police academy guy with a whole lot of voices. Michael Winslow. Now, he stepped out of the spotlight for some time and he came back doing the exact same thing he was doing before. And I understand his story behind why he stepped out. He stepped away from Hollywood because his wife had died and he needed to raise his young children. Well, his young children have raised. And then he resurfaces on America's Got Talent. You're Michael freaking Winslow. Do you really need America's Got Talent to relaunch your career? But it points back to what I said before. I think it's just giving them a nationwide platform to be seen by someone else to make a comeback. Watch this. Mark my words. time, date, and stamp this and put it in the time capsule. Michael Winslow will have either a cartoon or a movie within the next 2 years. And he got voted off America's Got Talent last week.
I feel like he could have done that without the show. He could have easily like auditioned for some fucking Nickelodeon cartoon.
He could have just walked in and said, "Hey, bitch, I'm Michael Winslow."
Yeah, like give me a fucking job on Paw Patrol or whatever. Like, and they probably would have. Like, you know,
it almost seems like him going on America's Got Talent was him slumming. To me, you're Michael effing Winslow. You are a national treasure.
Belittling yourself. Yeah.
Yeah. You know, so maybe it will hurt his career. Maybe it won't. But he got voted off. He was voted off America's Got Talent. He's no longer on. He didn't make it to the finals. He made it to the semifinals, but he didn't make it to the final show next week.
Do you feel
the
like
final show in 2 weeks?
Do you feel like American Idol was like one of the first shows to like? Well, I guess there were shows before American Idol, but like to be like that sort of weekly, instead of like, you know how most game shows are like you get the winner at the end of the show, like you start with these people and then it's done, where like American Idol is a full season, you get the same cast of characters, and now that's kind of the more common thing. Like you've got The Voice, you've got American Idol, you've got those shows, you have you know, Big Brother, Real World, fucking the Survivor, all these different shows that are like that. I guess Survivor was like pre-American Idol though, right? Or is it about the same time?
Survivor's been around for a long time. But I believe what the industry calls it is interest evolution. So basically you get to see the evolution of these people, and that's what American Idol brought. Because when we first saw, and it
like
dates all the way back it dates all the way back to like the Food Network, next Food Network star, where Guy Fieri came out of. And when we first saw him, he was, you know, his hair wasn't as spiky, it wasn't as blonde, he wasn't as outlandish as he is now. But then as the show goes on, you start to see more of that personality. You start to see more of that the evolution of the character of Guy. And basically Guy went from being a dude with a culinary degree to being a personality. And I think American Idol is that type of show that really brought that to the forefront of us, the forefront of television. And that's what, you know, when you watch like an episode of America's Got Talent now, they're going to do their best to try to make you cry. You know, some kid had lymphoma when he was a little kid, or right now they've got a guy that's got cerebral palsy that's on there, and you don't think for a minute they're not milking that storyline. The guy that, you know, Michael Winslow, when he was on America's Got Talent, same thing. My wife died. I had to raise my three kids. It's always that evolution of interest is what you know, American Idol presented to us and really made successful. And that's why all these other shows follow that same pattern.
Speaking of the dude with cerebral palsy, right? Like the dude on America's Got Talent right now. The
comedian,
I've popped in a couple times and seen it. My sister's watching in the living room or whatever. That motherfucking comedian guy with cerebral palsy fucking won Last Comic Standing like 10 years ago. I fucking remember that guy because I watched Last Comic Standing.
He's got a huge following as well.
Last Comic Standing 10 years ago. What the fuck is he doing on America's Got Talent?
He's not going to win, but it's another platform.
It's fucking stupid. Like, what the fuck is this?
It's the TV exposure, man, that they're looking for. That's it. They're not on there to
it's
necessarily
fucking crazy,
win.
Though. Like,
but you're right. I've seen him before in Instagram
won one
posts.
of these shows already. Like,
it doesn't matter. It's probably, I think Last Comic Standing was on a different network than America's Got Talent.
Yeah,
so boom.
But it was still like
he can do it. But you're right. It's all contrived, man. And some of these singers that you see, like I believe when Kelly Clarkson came onto American Idol, I don't believe she had that big of a following then. I mean, she may have had a couple of, you know, YouTube videos or something, but she didn't have a huge following. Yeah.
No. I don't think she was, because I do think like the first season of American Idol was very much like we're taking nobodies. Yeah. Like, we're taking fucking
and now
nobodies.
They're pulling people that have a million followers on YouTube.
Like Jordan Sparks is a good example, right? Because like I actually went to high school with Jordan Sparks, funny enough, but like her dad was a famous football player, and she had she had 2 albums before she was on American Idol, and I know that because she went to my high school, and I remember her like fucking singing at our high school what's it called, like talent show, and
prep rallies.
We had like talent shows though that she performed at, and everyone was like super hyped to see Jordan Sparks. This was pre American Idol. Like she was already like sort of famous. So
she turned down doing my show.
Who could believe it? You know,
Jordan Sparks turned down doing Fat Guy Radio Show.
Who could believe
right
it,
before her show right before her song Air came out. She was doing press.
This is why she doesn't have a career anymore. She didn't go on Fat Guy.
I'm like, you live up the street.
Yeah.
From my studio. How do you not want to? You didn't even have to come in studio. You could have done it virtually. I mean, this was 5 years ago, but I'm like, she turned down doing my show. She didn't do it.
Well, I'd love for her to come on this show because I've got some stories about her brother, because I was friends with her brother that I would love to talk to her about.
That'd sell it. That'd definitely sell it.
I'm sure she'd love that. But like those, I feel like those shows are weird, and but then
they're all contrived. They're not authentic anymore.
But the shows that I really liked though, growing up, the competition shows that I really liked growing up were the ones on MTV, and most of them were fake, right? Like they had one called Next, and it's like these dudes, they sit on what's called the Next bus, and then they go on a like speed date with this girl, and she would be like, "You're too short, next." And then they'd bring out like some dude off the bus, another guy off the bus to go on a date with her. And every minute of the show, they'd get every minute they were on a date with her, they'd get $1. And then at the end of the date, they could either keep the money or go on another date with her. And it was always so stupid because like it was always like hella scripted. But like honestly, the jokes were so fucking funny that I didn't even mind that it was scripted. Like, it was so dumb. There was one where it was this girl, and she's like, I like to text while I make poopies. And it's like, what the fuck is this show? Those were the ones that I really liked, because I just thought I almost felt like they were like a parody of game shows, and I thought they were very funny. I also really liked Silent Library, where it was
I missed that show. I love that show.
That one was
I watched that.
I
love that show so much. I go back to YouTube sometimes and watch old episodes of Silent Library. Oh, I forgot about that. That's a good pull. Oh, I loved that show. That one needs to come back.
Yeah, Silent Library was great. Just a bunch of like, they just like got homies together, and then they're like, just do ridiculous stuff, but don't laugh. And if you laugh, you lose money or whatever. That show was so funny, man.
Show. Oh my God. That was, you know what? That show I would really put in the file of a unique concept.
Yeah.
And I think it was so unique that it never really latched on to a nice firm market. But man, that was a good show.
I think the problem was that it was on MTV, and MTV was known for stupid game shows. And people just thought, oh, it's just another one of those stupid game shows.
It was a great show, though.
Like, if that show was like on Comedy Central, though, I think it would have done a lot better.
I think it needs to be given a chance on a major network, not just not that Netflix. MTV isn't a major network. Is it on Netflix?
They should put it on Netflix.
Oh man, and it's nowhere. It's like it's on YouTube. That's about where the only place that I can find it. But man, that was a great show. Oh, I forgot about that show.
Do you remember Yo Mama? Starring Wilmer Valderrama. If you don't know who Wilmer Valderrama, he played Fez on That 70s Show.
Yeah, I know who he is. Dreamy son of a bitch.
Yeah, he was the host of this show, and basically what it was so fucking bad and dumb, and I don't know how this show got greenlit. It was just a rap battle, but instead of doing raps, it was just Yo Mama jokes. just two dudes
I
that are like,
never heard of it.
It's just two dudes that are like, your mom's so fat that I couldn't even walk through the door.
Lame.
Like, just fucking horrible. But I was like fucking 12 when this show came out. I'm like, this is so funny. And I've gone back and like looked at some of it. I'm like, oh God, it's so bad. I can't even watch this shit.
So cringe. Never even heard of it.
Yeah, their target audience was 12-year-olds, definitely. So I guess I was that target audience. Yeah. Well, we went on such a tangent about game shows. I guess I'll save the last thing for next week.
Tune in next week, ladies and gentlemen.
With all the excitement in the world. That is Cory Blaze, host of Fat Guy Radio Show. Find it where shows exist. Also, check out all the stuff on the on the Lonercast YouTube channel. Dude, I'm posting so much goddamn content on there. It's insane how much content is coming to the YouTube channel.
Crazy.
It's crazy. Also, I am streaming all the goddamn time. I've been playing Boyfriend Dungeon, which is the weirdest fucking game I've ever played. Come check it out on twitch.tv/Lonercast, and check out the Loner Gamecast live every Monday at 3:30. We've got a big week of video games coming up, so fucking check it out, boys.
5, 6, 7, 8.